All right, we're back. Your favorite podcast show of the week. This is Location Weekly, episode number 511, and we're recording live on Tuesday, April the 6th. Yes, happy April, everybody. Happy spring. Happy baseball season. My Blue Jays are 3-1. It's good. It's a good start. How are you, Brianna?
I'm pretty good. It is a good start. Lots of allergies,
Yes.
but it's a good start to the month so far. And like baseball just makes you feel like there's new life coming to some extent. So feeling feeling good. I am obviously not at home this week. We are, however you house hunt in a pandemic, that's what we're doing. So we are out and about, masked up and trying to be as safe as possible and make things happen. But yeah, there's definitely not a guide on how to do all this stuff in the middle of a pandemic. So much less without a pandemic, right? So we're
Yeah.
just kind of trying to roll with it and make the best choices we can. But yep, we are good. So
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll jump right into it. We have four stories we want to cover this week. First one's a big one, and I'll let Brianna kind of start us off with that.
yeah, so we are going to talk a little bit about Google and their FLoC, or the Federated Learning of Cohorts. If you're not really familiar with what this is cohorts that are using on-device machine learning to kind of create these segments that are targeting based on patterns, browsing patterns. And really, this is how Google's planning on enabling interest-based advertising across the web after the end of cookies. So this is very interesting. Obviously, a hot topic. Everybody's trying to figure out what they're doing once cookies go away, and how is this going to affect them, and what are their options going to be moving forward. So Google just began testing this about a week ago. They're testing this across the U.S., Australia, Brazil, Canada, Indonesia, Japan, New Mexico. New Mexico is a state, not maybe Mexico, but they wrote New Mexico in the article, which is very funny. New Zealand and the Philippines. They're not testing in Europe yet, obviously. Across the EU, there are, other concerns there. So, um, you know, the concerns from Europe obviously are that the concern from, it's called the CMA, which is the Competition and Markets Authority. So they're obviously concerned, from an antitrust perspective, that this privacy sandbox, kind of they're assessing here if the proposals would cause this ad spend to become even more, concentrated, and Google having this further monopoly than they have even now in their ecosystem at the expense of their competitors. So I think that's a valid concern, obviously. And there's also concerns from the EFF, which is the Electronic Frontier Foundation. So they were saying this is a terrible idea. This is basically exacerbating many of the worst non-privacy problems with behavioral ads, including discrimination and predatory targeting, which is interesting. So to me, the whole idea of creating cohorts or segments based upon a group of users' behaviors that are similar is very similar to exactly what we do right now with, maids, or, whether you call that IDFA, or your Google ad ID, Android ad IDs. All of those things that are making up those unique identifiers are typically being used in terms of a cohort or a segment. No advertiser is interested in targeting one person. They are interested in targeting lots of people with the same characteristics that are likely to buy their product or service. So this is very similar to me, and exactly how the same way we've been doing these things before. Right now they're really focused on testing. However, the origin trials are basically a way for these developers to test these experimental web features, give feedback on the usability, effectiveness, functionality. It's really kind of a QA where you've got external resources that are involved here. Google's continuing to defend their approach. They're saying that, the cohorts are defined again by similarities and not based on who someone is as an individual. Again, sounds exactly like what we have sort of right now. But Chrome is introducing a control within the browser. Actually, I think they should have launched it back at the beginning of this month, so just a few days ago. So users can opt out of being included in FLoC and other privacy sandbox proposals as well. So, very hot topic, very much, I think, indicative of the time that we're living in and the shift in technology and privacy and all of those things that everybody's trying to get to align in the right way. And it's complicated. There's not really a great easy answer, but I know that it's a question that comes up a lot in my day job and probably yours as well, is trying to figure out where does privacy, consumer privacy, and advertising efficacy intersect, right? Like, what's that line and what's that balance? So it's going to be an interesting one to watch. I'm sure we'll be talking more about it here. But what's your take on this announcement so far?
I'm not, sort of overly enthusiastic about this because I don't think it's anything, revolutionary at all. I think at the end of the day, as you pointed out, I think that the idea of cohorts, versus individuals is like what's unique about that? Nothing, right? Like that's how the industry works. Nobody wants to target one person, to sell one person something. People are targeting groups of people with common behaviors to sell, that group a whole bunch of whatever it is, that they're going after. So, I think the notion of coming up with these audiences or these cohorts and kind of going after them in that way and kind of having, sort of this argument that it's, we're going after a group versus individual. To me, there's nothing really interesting or different about that, right? I think everybody's trying to find their way around, the changes to these rules and sort of the cookie-free world. And I think, there's going to be a number of different approaches to this. We've seen and we've talked about, some of the companies in the location ecosystem are kind of going away from SDKs and into server-side type of implementations to get at the data in different ways. I was just reading about another initiative called Swan. I don't know if you've heard about this one. That's just out in the marketplace right now for public feedback and testing. So this is it's backed by PubMatic, OpenX, and Zeta. And basically, it's more of a consumer consent model, or sort of the idea of personal data vaulting, where you say, here's what I'm interested in. Advertisers that want to engage with people that have expressed those interests can do so, and sort of that's managed through this sort of network environment, what they're calling Swan. So I think that to me makes more sense. This idea of sort of matching based on consent, as opposed to sort of watching behind the scenes and building groups and audiences. I think we're at that point now where people realize their data has value. The advertisers, have been sort of just taking it freely and doing with it as they please. And those days are gone. And now we have to figure out new models and new ways to sort of not only get the data, but include the consumer, I think, in the sort of value ecosystem around that. Maybe all the way to having them participate in the actual monetization of it. But at the very least, I think sort of giving them that opportunity to participate. So I like the notion of what this Swan thing is talking about. And I think, Google's trying to do something with FLoC, and, Apple's trying to do their own, version with their own privacy ecosystem. And I think we'll see, right? I think it's so early right now, and I think it's going to be months before, we kind of see what's happening here. And I also think, though, the timing is good because, people are still mostly home, mostly shopping online, mostly, interacting, with brands online. And so because you're not physically out and about in the stores as we were before, and it's mostly an e-commerce and online world at the moment, testing these kinds of models in this current time frame, in this sort of pandemic, sort of augmented framework makes sense, right? In terms of getting feedback. And so I know the Swan Initiative, they have a 60-day public comment period going on right now. And, obviously Google's looking for feedback on FLoC. I think that's the acronym right? FLoC.
Yep.
Yeah.
They,
So we'll
people are
see,
saying,
right? I don't know. I mean, I think we'll probably see other initiatives come out too, right? From some of the others. I'd be interested to see kind of what the large ad agency community thinks, right? We haven't really heard a lot from the likes of WPP and those types of companies out there on kind of what they want or what they anticipate as sort of next steps, right? And maybe some of them will come out with their own. I don't know, right? I mean, it's not beyond the media buying companies and the ad agencies, the MediaComs and StarComs and these kinds of guys out there, to develop products, right, or develop solutions. So let's see what comes from that segment of the market too.
yeah, that will for sure be interesting. I mean, they a lot of the time they have access to their clients' first party data anyways, so they can, use that to create models, for their own advertising there and trying to figure out what works best. I think they're in a good position to kind of know what's the reach going to be through different approaches, what's the scale going to look like. But yeah, we would love to hear feedback if you fall into that category on your thoughts on this.
Alrighty. Okay, let's go to our second story now. So we're going to go talk about beer. Yes, it's spring is here. Patio season's around the corner. Sitting around having a beer is an activity that people are looking forward to, I am sure. And there's a company out there that's developed an augmented reality platform called Beerscans, one word, that layers on top of, in particular, the craft beers out there. So this isn't mainstream sort of Budweiser and Molson and whatnot. This is sort of targeted at all the sort of the craft beer industry, and kind of layering an augmented reality marker into the packaging and the labels that are going on here, just to create some fun and some engagement as you're sitting there enjoying your favorite craft beverage. So they say, imagine looking at a beer can and noticing that it's slowly getting darker all by itself, or some animation is coming out of it, that's sort of tied into the theme of the brand name or something along those lines. It could be a video playing, it could be anything really, because it's augmented reality. So this is created by a guy named Dave Chaffee, who's the founder of Beerscans, and it's an Australian startup, and they're pitching the concept to all sorts of craft beer brands, locally there in Australia and around the world. So I think it's kind of fun. I think it's simple. I mean, there's nothing earth-shattering here on the technology side. Augmented reality has been around for a long time. Embedding this into labels and packaging and markers has been around for a long time. I remember, all the way back to one of the earliest members of the LBMA, a UK company called Blipper, that was doing a lot in packaging with especially consumer goods like cereal boxes and Cadbury chocolate bars and things like that. So it makes sense, and I think what I worry about for a company like this is, is it like, are you able to build a market strictly on the beer industry for essentially what is a feature here, right? It's not, there's some unique IP that I can see anyways, just in how they describe it. But they do plan it to tie it into POS materials at some point. So, maybe there's something there if they can kind of go a little bit deeper integrated into the industry, and tie back some other metrics around it, then, there could be a play there. So we'll see. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, one, my first thought was it kind of sounds like, an LSD trip without having to take any drugs, which is great. You could just have your beer. So I'm sure there's lots of fun things that they can do there in terms of the actual experience that you get to have. I do like that it's focused on craft beer and not like the mainstream brand names, but I do also completely agree with you that in terms of this is a feature, this is not a solution or a product. And so how do you tap into those craft beer lovers, and help maybe it's exposure. So maybe it's tying, making suggestions based on that specific type of beer. Here's other beers you might like to try that are similar, in taste, flavor, all of those different things. or maybe making it like where to find the beers, so finding like um, local places that have those that are available. So I think there's like a lot of options there in terms of tapping into the industry a little further. But again, I feel like unless they do that, and kind of make those efforts and that more of like business development versus product development, they are just looking at more of a solution that's just a feature that can be baked in anywhere. So we'll see. But again, I like that people are being creative during this time and thinking about other things that we can do with our phones even more.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so we're going to move from beer now to donuts, which probably would maybe go well together. But Krispy Kreme, my personal favorite donut shop for sure, is offering free donuts to anyone who gets a free donut to anyone who gets a vaccination. So if you go to Krispy Kreme and you show a valid COVID-19 vaccination card, at locations nationwide here in the States, you'll get a free original glazed donut. This is going to go throughout the year. This is valid at all 369 Krispy Kreme shops. This is across 41 states. So this is anytime, any day, and every day for the rest of the year, according to their CEO. And they're also encouraging their employees to get vaccinated. So they're giving them 4 hours off to go get their vaccine. And this is also something that some other companies have done, like Best Buy, Target, and Trader Joe's, just encouraging their workers to get the shot. So Krispy Kreme is the only, corporation that we have heard of so far that's really offering consumers the incentive, to get a special treat if they get vaccinated. But, lots of companies, I think, are encouraging their employees to get vaccinated. And, this is interesting to me. I think that there's like a fine line here, right? So I am all for those who feel comfortable and can get vaccinated, taking that step. I think it's great. Obviously, all of us are very eager and ready to get back to some sort of normalcy or socialization and, have just getting out in the public. But I want to make sure that we're not shaming people who maybe are unable to get the vaccine or, have other valid concerns, for doing so. So I love that we're encouraging people to be healthy and do the right thing. And it's nice to see, corporations getting involved and like actually literally putting their money where your mouth is. So sharing that love across, and who doesn't love a good Krispy Kreme donut? So I think this is fun. I think this is, in line with what's going on right now. Yeah, it makes me want donuts. What do you think?
Yeah, I love a good Krispy Kreme. Like original glaze is the way to go always. Yeah, I just wish they would extend this up to Canada. I mean, come on, like we want to get vaccines here too, and I will definitely go get a free donut. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great incentive. I think it's brilliant. I think it's good corporate branding and marketing positioning out there. As you said, I think there's a lot of retail brands that have sort of stepped out and said, look, we're encouraging our workers to get vaccinated, and we're giving them time off, or we're giving them paid leave or whatever to go do that. And I think that's good, and that makes sense. But I think on the consumer side, really getting the public to do something here, I think, it's, what does it cost for a donut? It can't cost them that much, right? But, at the end of the day, I think it's, and it probably gets you in the store, right? And if you're there and you get your free donut, maybe you're going to buy a dozen too. You know what I mean? So I think there is a potential upside to this. And I like it. I think it's just smart, right? To sort of get behind a good initiative here, which is getting people vaccinated, and B, it's a great brand positioning move for them. So I just they got to bring this up to Canada. We don't have that many stores up here, but there's one right here, like right near me. I'll go.
Hello.
So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree that this is likely driving sales for them. Like it's not going to be just, they're definitely making money off of this. You can't just get one donut from Krispy Kreme. I mean, you've got your kids in the car, you need to get a coffee with it or whatever
Yeah,
it is,
exactly.
for sure.
All right. Our final story for this week is a little acquisition that we wanted to talk about, and that is GroundTruth. A mainstay in our location industry here, has made an acquisition of a company called Addy. It's spelled Addy. They're a online local advertising marketplace. And I didn't see any specific numbers on the value of the transaction. I don't know if you saw anything, Ariana, but I think this is interesting because if you look at the sort of space that GroundTruth has played in over the years, right? And I put them in that sort of category of the big three, of location ad targeting platform companies out there, right? So you got them and Verve and back, at a time, Think Near and so on, right? So you sort of have, those sort of players that have been around for a long time. And I think one of the challenges for a company like GroundTruth is, or anybody in that sort of ecosystem, is their platforms, their data sets, work really well for sort of the mid to large enterprise customers, but they don't play well for the small independent business. It's tough to manage. They don't have the staff and the resources and sort of the expertise in house to know how to buy and consume that type of media. And Addy, sort of plays at that level, right? Which is the small business sort of, more in line with, let's say a Rio SEO Yext, type of sort of solution, right? And so I think, this acquisition for GroundTruth, I think sort of gives them, a chance to sort of widen out a little bit and say, look, yes, we can serve the big enterprise customers, but we can also serve the mom and pop small businesses now, through the Addy piece there. And so it just gives them that seamless sort of all encompassing, platform, to do that. And so I like it for that reason, that it just gives them, a new customer base to go after. Obviously it comes with, an existing platform and revenue and all of that. I don't know, again, the value of the transaction or how many people are coming over with Addy or, whatnot, but I think it makes sense. Any thoughts for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting just to see when a small, not small, but a medium-sized company, I would say, like GroundTruth, that has served larger advertisers, is thinking about how do we kind of diversify and maybe be able to serve those more locally based advertisers. I think that's interesting. It makes me wonder, like, what is the, are they shifting their business model? Are they shifting their focus in the future? And is it just because of any tech changes that are happening right now? Are those affecting any of these choices that they're making and that strategy moving forward? Or is there, are they truly just trying to kind of be able to service the entire industry? I'm not sure. But I think I find it very interesting, and I think we'll have to kind of just see what the next 6 months holds for GroundTruth to kind of see the application of what this is really looking to do. If they're trying to truly compete where Addy is, or if they're going to leverage maybe something that they have to enable some of the existing technology or IP that GroundTruth has in-house. So good to see.
Yeah, and I think you raise a good point there. With these changes in cookies and privacy and all of that, the top end is getting squeezed, right? In terms of those enterprise customers and the buys and the volumes and so on. So I think looking elsewhere to enable the small business community in a different way, I think makes sense, right? So I think there could be something there for sure. So it'll be interesting to watch, right? And we've seen a lot of those other players I mentioned, start to ramp up their services. Some of the European players have come into North America lately, as well. So we'll see, right? Time will tell. But an interesting acquisition for them. And GroundTruth's gone through a lot of changes, right, over the last couple of years in terms of leadership changes and platform offerings and so on. So it's it's just a natural evolution, and we'll watch and see. So
there you go.
That's it. All right. Well, thanks for listening and watching, everybody. This has been episode number 511 of Location Weekly. We thank you for your time. We hope you have a great rest of your week, and reach out to us if you have story ideas or feedback. And we'll see you next week for 512. Bye, everyone.
Bye.